the conventional weapons, if they get loose from Syria, and there are a bunch of them, is incredibly destabilizing to the Levant, to the Middle East, to Southern Europe.
You know, Iran is busy here. Iran is very busy here, and so is Hezbollah. So it's just one of those things that I think that we do need to be very cautious.
For America to sit on the sidelines and do nothing is a huge mistake because the world is watching.
And of course, if we do.
Good morning. Breaking news out of Syria this morning. Syria's prime minister escaped an assassination attempt today when a bomb went off near his convoy in Damascus. Meanwhile, as you just heard, President Obama faces many complicating factors as Congress, as you just heard, pressures him to intervene. Among the latest, Russian anti-aircraft missile systems recently acquired by the Syrians. To help us sort out how and whether the U.S. should get involved in Syria's civil war, special guest Andrew Tabler of the Washington Institute joins us. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning.
So, first off, let's talk a little bit about the pressure that's facing the president right now. How do we? You've been talking a lot about really Syria is at risk of being taken over by extremists, and that's a complicating factor.
It's not just that it's going to be taken over by extremists, and we see more of them. They're not all of the opposition's forces, but it's just going to be broken up into generally three parts: what's left of the regime, a Sunni Arab version of Syria in the middle, and then a Kurdish version in the east. And in all of these areas, we have U.S. designated terrorist organizations, which are very active, if not the sort of vanguard forces. That, combined with the fact that Syria has the largest stockpile of chemical weapons in the Middle East, means that this is not something that I believe America can ignore. The question is, how can it respond in order to contain the situation and move forward?
How can it respond? Answer your own question.
I think that really at this point we have to stop trying to do this sort of Syria operation from the top down, trying to beg the Russians into a Security Council resolution that they're not simply ready to back and probably can't deliver on anyway. And instead work at the problem from the ground up and really deal with Syria as it is. And that is that Syria is just now increasingly a failed state, a divided country. And the only way to shape it is from the ground up. But that takes tough decisions from our part in dealing with armed groups in Syria and not simply trying to treat the symptoms of the Syria crisis by extending humanitarian aid.
Okay, but is that so simply done?
No, it's not. It's very complicated, and the more we wait, the more complicated it will become. That's the way these kind of crises work. And really, we're looking at here that we have a lot of allies who are on our side. We've vetted a lot of armed groups inside of Syria. But at this point, though, looking at the armed groups and backing them, and we should back some of them, I think they do deserve our limited support, and not just in non-lethal aid, but also in lethal aid as well. But at the same time, we're going to have to deal with the fact that over half the Syrian population is on the move. These are Bosnia-like levels, not only the death tolls, but also the number of displaced persons. We're going to have to help them inside of Syria, because if they all run to neighboring countries, our allies there, Turkey, Israel, Jordan, and Iraq, will become overwhelmed and possibly destabilized. And that failed state model destabilizes the security architecture in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, has acquired to protect himself are anti-aircraft missile systems from the Russians, which the president is saying, I think we're reporting that basically if we wanted to institute a no-fly zone, this would make it more difficult. Let's talk a little bit about President Assad. He's been allied with Iran. He has helped support terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas. And yet, without him, what's left?
Well, what's left of Syria is a divided country, essentially, and in a number of other areas, the Sunni Arab parts of the country, you have opposition forces which are very active. We have some extremist forces there, Al Qaeda affiliates, also in Kurdish areas. But the problem with Bashar al-Assad is it's not whether he should go or not. He should go because of the death and destruction he's caused. But most importantly, Bashar al-Assad doesn't control his entire country, and that's a big problem. It's a big problem for the United States. It's a big problem for the Israelis, because until now, the only useful thing about Assad was that he was able to keep control of his weapons and keep the peace in Syria. That's no longer the case, and will never be the case for him ever again over all of geographic Syria. He could hold on a part of it, but that part will be sort of together with Lebanon and more dependent on Iran and Hezbollah than at any other time. That's very bad news for the U.S. and particularly for Israel at a time when they're confronting Iran over its nuclear program.
And yet, Andrew, one of the problems we have as we look at some of the anti-aircraft systems that Syria has acquired, one of the problems is what if you arm the rebels? I mean, we tried this in Afghanistan in the 80s, and that didn't end so well. We toppled Saddam, but that empowered the Shia, and in a way, you could say that Iran was the ultimate victor there.
Yeah, I can't imagine how Iran would be the ultimate victor here. It's true, the anti-aircraft systems, make this operation harder, but I believe the U.S. Air Force can knock it out. I know the U.S. Air Force believes it can knock it out too. It makes it more complicated, but the more we wait, the more we allow Bashar to import these kind of weapons, more sophisticated weapons. If we had done this a couple of years ago, it would be a much different story. It'd be much cheaper. And this is where I think that the current dollars and cents and these explanations about the U.S. is tired of going into foreign entanglements. I understand that, but sometimes the situation dictates that to do something sooner rather than later actually saves lives and
could it backfire? Could it backfire in the sense that if we arm rebels, that we end up having a situation like we had in, say, Afghanistan post the Russian war there in the 80s?
I suppose it's possible, but I think at this point, though, that the weapons are flowing in anyway, except they're being supplied by extremists and then other people from the Arab Gulf. We have no control over those weapons. We have no idea where they're going, and they're showing up in places that we wouldn't like, and that's not good. It's better to get involved in this game in a smart way, and we're not talking about boots on the ground here. We're not talking about changing Syria or U.S. policy. We're talking about just more involvement.
Great. Thank you for that great insight this morning, Mr. Tabler.
My pleasure.